I gotta say, as we head into part 6 of this interrogation review, my empathy for Grant Amato is really running low. All the sorrow I had for the poor 20 something young man, he was a pretty smart guy, but things didn't quite work out for him yet. That's going away, and my empathy is kind of aging as he goes from talking about himself to his brother and then his parents. And hearing the excuses he's making for his failings and the way he's describing his family. My empathy is aging. I'm going to have a full white beard by the end of the series. Because get a load of the way that Grant describes his mom. She's pretty much just a tool. She's a character in his anime, as we've said. Because Danny Anderson just sets it up again like, oh, so mom, tell me about mom. What do you have to say about mom? And instead of talking about mom, Grant's opening statement kind of shows her utility in his life and the way he's going to use her now that she's not around anymore. Mom's always been the one who's been more focused on me. And then when Danny Anderson tries to get follow-up information like what's her education, what's her job, that's when Grant gets a little foggy on the details and can't remember and has to backtrack. He's not quite clear on mom's actual life, her interests, her hobbies. So when he was asked about his mom, he could have said, well, she adopts horses, rescues them from perilous situations, raises them so that they can be rejuvenated and ride again. She loves them. She works 12 hours a day. As approaching retirement age, she's still working hard, and yet still has the time to make dinner for me, even though I'm a 29-year-old man who lays around staring at internet porn all day like a mosquito sucking blood out of the computer screen. He doesn't say any of that. All he's focused on is that mom's always been focused on me, because that's her use in Grant's life. And I may have misspoken when I called Grant the deflated sperm cell that accidentally flailed his way into the egg and somehow grew into a human. Because now that I look back on it, Margaret Amato adopted horses, took care of them, and raised them as her own. Chad Amato adopted Jason as his own son. So both of the Amato parents are okay adopting and raising animals and people alike. So I think what may have actually happened with Grant is that they adopted Grant from Nosferatu. If you don't know Nosferatu, Google him. He's a spitting image. And if you look at him in any of the thumbnails in court or just a clip from court, he looks like he's trying to make people's heads explode with the power of his mind, the way he's looking at people like, no, blowing stuff up with his finger lasers. So, Nosferatu physically and mentally and emotionally, just a bloodsucker. Just using the memory of his mom to serve his own purpose now that she's gone. And Grant was being nice to mom. Wait till you hear what he says about dad. We've heard Grant so far, as he's been talking about himself and his brothers and his mom. Here and there, he will get these little sniping comments in at his dad, and you can tell it's been bothering Danny Anderson, the surrogate for Chad Amato. Because, when Danny Anderson started off asking these setup questions like, so, buddy, tell me about your hobbies. What do you like to do? And then tell me about your brother, Cody. What's he like? He's been getting more and more agitated to the point where by the time he asks about dad, tell me about dad, he's almost grinding his teeth, and he practically growls it out when he says, so tell me about dad. What do you have to say about dad, Grant? He's not quite as obvious as that, but he has every right to be, and kudos to him for holding back his anger because, as we've said, Danny Anderson knows that Chad has been murdered, and he is almost certain that Grant is the one who murdered him. So when asked to describe dad, Grant pretty much reiterates all the sniping comments he's already been making when he summarizes Dad, how he's been tough on them all through their childhood. He's been an asshole at his jobs. He's been stressed about finances and just most disgustingly blind and absent of other vantage points. This is an example, actually, of how Grant, not only is he trying to, I think part of it is he's disoriented in his balancing of fantasy with reality to make his story work after talking for so long, but also I think this is also a product of his sheltered upbringing, self-imposed sheltered upbringing, because he could have been like his older brother Jason, moved out at 18 and got his own life started, but he wanted to hang on and suck the blood out of his family life, as long as he could. Self-imposed isolation and sheltered upbringing. And it's given him this blind spot that I'm about to describe to you here, where he says of his dad and all of his stresses, he would say, he would word things in a way that would make me feel bad. And it's this that illustrates, because Danny Anderson will add to these criticisms later, but for now, this is what I have to say about it. When you listen to this, when you listen to Grant complain about his dad and how he was, and just the way he describes him, you kind of forget that this is a 29-year-old man, a grown man. He could have his own business, his own family, his own whatever the fuck, everything by now. But he's still, if you just listen to it in the background, you think that it's a kid talking about his dad and like he's stuck in this situation. But it's a grown man. And the answer to it, and Danny Anderson and Eva Malteri, I'm sure, are holding this back. But the thought occurred to me every single time that Grant would criticize his parents, mostly his dad. He was nice to Mom, like I said. But every time he would criticize something, it would occur to me why don't you just move out? You're a grown man. Move out of the house if you don't like it. Dad's mean to you. Move out. No one's stopping you. I'm sure your parents would be happy if you moved out. Why are you still living there? This is, to answer that question, by the way, this is a baby bird that instead of jumping from the nest to fly on its own and have its own freedom in the air, it turns around and pushes mama bird from the nest so it can stay there instead. Or it's more like, if you think, because you can say that Grant's actions in the last year or so, maybe even going back further to his performance as a nurse, are evil, very selfish to the point of evil, narcissistic to the point of evil. Humans aren't the only ones capable of evil, and Grant's behavior and refusing to leave the nest actually reminds me of that predator. I forgot what it was, but it invades when the mama bird is away from the nest. It will lay its egg in the nest, take one of the mama bird's eggs away for a feast, and then its egg will hatch later on and eat everyone else in the nest. So the poor mama bird comes back, thinks she's raising her own offspring, and she's raising a predator that ends up ruining her family. So in some ways, Grant Amato is like that predator egg that was laid in the Amato family by Nosferatu. A lot of similarities there. And, if you look at this critically, here's an example of Grant's criticizing of his own father actually illustrates Grant's lazy loser mindset. And by loser, I don't mean someone who's hardworking, intelligent, capable, and because of sheer serendipity, they were just never in the right place at the right time, so they failed. They didn't get the job, they didn't get the promotion, because someone else was in the right place at the right time. But they're going to keep trying and eventually succeed. I don't mean that kind of a loser, because that's just the misfortune that befalls all of us, no matter how hard we try or how capable we are at doing something. If we're not in the right place at the right time, it doesn't happen. But Grant's lazy loser mindset is summed up best with the way he describes how when he and Cody were in middle school, He's trying to describe his father as being overbearing and abusive by saying that he would whip the baseball when we were playing. He would take us to play baseball and he would whip it at us as hard as he could. We were in 7th and 8th grade and he was throwing the ball as hard as a grown man can throw at us, expecting us to hit it or catch it. Isn't that bad? Is what Grant is implying. Well, no, because NBA Hall of Famer Gary Payton, in his enshrinement speech, thanked his father for playing as hard as he could against Gary Payton. When Gary Payton was in middle school, his father would play full force against him. Gary Payton described this story in his Hall of Fame speech. He thanked his father for playing as hard as he could against Gary because that allowed Gary Payton to rise up to the challenge of a superior opponent. And that made Gary Payton grow and become a better competitor himself by rising up to the challenge that his father put upon him. So you can have that Hall of Famer mindset and be challenged to reach a higher standard like Gary Payton. Or you can be like Grant Amato, wilt under the pressure, and use that as an excuse for all of the failures for the rest of your life. You know, this is why I think the almighty algorithm has stopped putting my videos in front of people, because there's been some nice comments saying, why doesn't this video have more views? Why doesn't this channel have more subscribers? And those are very nice to read. And I think part of the problem there, part of the reason is that my videos are giving away the future endeavors of the AI, the 5G, whatever it's called, because the artificial intelligence that will possibly be our overlords one day would benefit and hopes that all humans become Grant Amato, just a useless flesh battery to be plugged into the internet or whatever it will be called when it takes us over, and just feed it information, feed it energy, think it's getting something in return, but is actually getting nothing. And when someone gets in the way of that, if someone put it in the mindset, put the Grant Amato human being in the mindset of, if something gets in the way of you being plugged into that artificial intelligence, just kill them. Even if it's the people who love and care for you, have done more for you than anyone else in the world, just kill them, get them out of the way so you can get back to plugging yourself into that artificial intelligence, or 5G or 10G or 20,000G or whatever it's going to be. The internet, or whatever it will be called, will benefit and hope that all humans become Grant Amato. And that will be the end of our species. So this video, and all of my videos as a matter of fact, you are getting something back. It's not like a cam girl where you are giving away everything to get less than nothing in return, just so you can continue to give away more and get nothing in return. You're actually getting imparted some valuable information and I think entertainment through my videos. So hopefully you can like, share, and subscribe. And if we're still here, I will see you in part 7.